Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As always, I am joined by Nathan, and on this week's episode, we have, I think it would be fair to say, Borough's best performance and probably biggest moment of the season so far to discuss. Of course, I'm referring to the Friday night victory live on the box against Ipswich, one of the league favourites. We've got so much to talk about in terms of all of the action, all of the aftermath, just the general feeling about Borough. And of course, we've got a new badge to talk about as well as two more fixtures. So, I mean, this podcast is going to be very packed. But Nathan, just to get us started, we're recording on a slightly different time. You might have noticed the family curtains in the background, so please, in the comments, don't give them too much stick. But Nathan, how are you feeling on this Sunday morning, bright and early?
I'm buzzing, mate. Yeah, the Friday night fixtures are always nice when you can get a win in those, and especially the magnitude of the game. Everyone going into that sort of probably being a little bit pessimistic, me included, with us playing Ipswich off. Obviously, them off the back of an East Anglian derby win for the first time in 16 years, and obviously the quality that they've got in their squad as well as the size of it in terms of the options that they can bring on, really outrageous for the division. And yeah, to win that game is absolutely massive. It gives everyone a confidence boost. The players, the fans, the coaching staff, everyone involved will be buoyed by that. And yeah, woke up yesterday morning absolutely buzzing after the Friday night game. I think you'd said that you felt like you were hungover or still drunk from
Yeah.
the emotion after
Yeah.
Friday night.
Do you know what? That's exactly what I said. And funnily enough, I'd had nothing to drink. It was just emotionally draining. It felt like one of those really big nights where you get in from the riverside and you feel like you've almost played a game yourself. The adrenaline's still pumping in you that much that I'm lying in bed like, should I just like go and do something? I should be trying to go to sleep, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to go to sleep. I want to go and relive that. It was a great night. But as I say, we'll obviously delve into that in a little bit. First of all, and in terms of another positive that the club have done, and usually these events really scare me because I think it would be fair to say over the years, Middlesbrough have had their fair share of PR wobbles. Let's just put it that way. And with a new badge, how many times over the last few years you always go back to that ridiculous Leeds badge? Have a club released a new crest and you've just thought, how is that gone through probably thousands and thousands of pounds worth of creative agencies and top brass at the club and been signed off by probably over about 50 people and made it to public knowledge? Thankfully, Middlesbrough's badge has been announced. Obviously, that will come into play from the beginning of next season. And for me, and I think the vast majority, of course, you're never going to please everyone, it meets or ticks every box in terms of fan opinion and what we all wanted. The circular crest is back, the lion remains, and there's a couple of really nice sort of smaller details as well, which to the naked eye, you've got to kind of pick them out a little bit, and people may not realise them. I guess if you're not a Middlesbrough fan, but I think a big shout out to the club's media staff because they've done a really good job of, and the club marketing team in general. There was a big fan consultation event, and also I think the actual social media coverage and sort of social media package around the new badge has been brilliant. The videos, the interviews with the artists which have been in charge of designing and producing the new badge, and just in general, the look, I think like everything with football, whether it's season tickets being announced or the new kit, when the club's winning football matches, it always makes things a little bit easier. You're seeing it Norwich at the moment. They're announcing things, and because they're doing so badly on the pitch, they can just do no right off the pitch as well. But I do think in terms of the product and what we've seen that's been announced now, I'm really, really happy with it.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I'm not necessarily the most creative person, I suppose. I haven't got a creative mind to be able to look at the badge and be able to pick out roseberry topping and be able to pick out the River Tees when looking at the lion's tongue and things like that. So those are, I'm a little bit indifferent about those. But for me, circle badge does what it says on the tin, really, with the most exciting period in Borough's history. And the lion remains, as you say, 1876 on the badge now, which is slightly different to the best badge that I think most fans would say we've had up until 2007. Yeah, a bit of a change there with the founding year, which is really important, I think, rather than 1986 on there. But yeah, I think for me, just plain and simple, circular, lion, founding year, that'll do it.
Yeah, and I think for me, what's important, and especially really for fans of our age range, really, we've kind of always remembered, or at least as match-going fans, the badge as it is now. And to be honest, it's been pretty much, other than one season, just a bucket load of failure after failure. So to get away from that, to hopefully start something or the start of a period that's going to be really successful for the football club, and obviously coming up to a big anniversary in the 150th anniversary as well, which will obviously see a specialist golden crest, which I absolutely love as well. Yeah, I'm really happy with it, and yeah, I think for the most part, if you'd have done which the club did do in fairness, if you'd have done a survey about the badge of this season or the last however many years it's been, I don't think many people really preferred it. I don't think people loved it, and I think people certainly, as the results of that poll kind of, and as the results of basically the badge going back to a circle has shown, everyone wanted to go back to that, and yeah, it's red and white. It's got the lion. I like the text, and to be honest, for me, I've seen a lot of talk about can we get little bit of blue in there. For me, Middlesbrough's always red and white, and I also, for me, a Middlesbrough kit has a white band on, and obviously just where the numbers are, you can see the little reference to the band. So yeah, excellent job from the artists that have been in charge of that, and always nice the fact that the sort of lead in the project was a Middlesbrough fan, so he obviously understands the importance of it and exactly what it means to support us. But yes, this is not the art and crafts show. This is the Boropolis podcast, and of course, as you say, between me and you, we don't have many creative genes going on in our body, unless you're seeing me spraying balls about in centre midfield, which I don't think has ever happened really. So yeah, let's just talk about the football, Nathan, and let's talk about Friday night. And I think the best place to start is Delano Bergsorg starting. Now, if you've listened to this podcast for long enough, you will realise that there was a game last season, and it was Luton at home, an early kickoff, and the teams come out, obviously only an hour before. And we said on that podcast, I rang Nathan and I said, Nathan, if you're not at the ground already, I think you might want to consider your journey, because I've looked at the team and where on earth has that been pulled from? Now, there was a few whispers on Thursday and Friday, wasn't there? And obviously, until the team sheet comes out, you don't know for a fact. But that team sheet comes out, and we see Morgan Whittaker, Delano Bergsorg, a change of formation, Luke Ayling on the bench, who's arguably been Borough's player of the season. And you kind of think, okay then, Rob, you really, obviously some of the changes have been enforced. The internationals again have been an absolute joke. The fact that Sonjay Hansen wasn't actually back until Friday, and obviously Aidan Morris played in the USA games. But in terms of from what Rob Edwards has had to work with from the international break, and then what we saw on Friday night, I think it would be fair to say it was a big shock in terms of the shift in the formation, one, but also the personnel, especially in those wide areas.
Yeah, I think that the change in formation was the one that shocked me the most for him to change it in this game as
Yeah,
well. Looking at Ipswich, obviously they're a 4-2-3-1 side and have been for years, haven't really changed from that for years. And to go and try and match them up, I thought would be very difficult, especially with the team that we were going to put out. Obviously, Brown in there instead of Morris. It's not to say Brown's a bad player, but Morris is our midfield with Hackney, and obviously the change to the back four a little bit different. To be fair, was confident that Target and Britain could do their jobs there. And obviously, Fry and Jones haven't really at all give us anything to worry about so far this season. They've both been solid, but it was obviously more about finding a little bit of balance with the top end of the pitch and being able to create a little bit more than we have done in the opening 9 games before this one. And yeah, I think Strelec in the 10 was good in terms of what fans wanted to see. People wanted to see him more withdrawn, wanted to see him either if we were playing three at the back in one of those 10 positions, or especially in this position as a 9.5 in the Tuber Akpom role. But yeah, in terms of players that shock you in that lineup, it's definitely Whittaker and Bergsorg, really, in terms of Whittaker with his performance of this season have been relatively underwhelming for the most part. And obviously Bergsorg we saw in the opening couple of fixtures, but then dropped to the bench.
I think had Sonjay Hansen, if he had not been away on international duty, then we might have seen him take up one of the wide positions. Obviously, he's more naturally probably a winger in fairness. It's obviously played into Bergsorg's hands, the fact that he's been away and he's been basically in front of the manager's eyes. And in all honesty, I think Rob Edwards has now shown that if I have different options to use, then of course I'm going to use them. And I think that's something that's really, really important. Not look, we've obviously seen it in game. He's not bothered about making changes early, but I think in terms of it's like when a new manager comes in and says everyone's starting with a fresh slate, but they're never really starting with a fresh slate. I genuinely think Rob Edwards, and so he should because it's a very good squad, but Rob Edwards views each and every member of this squad, of course, every team's got their kind of nailed on first name on the team sheet. But if he sees, I don't know, a fullback, for example, or a little weakness in an opposition that he thinks he can exploit, and there's someone that might not have played for 4 games, but he thinks his skill set is going to really work well against that deficiency, he's more than happy to throw him in. And I think, in fairness, obviously we'll get on to individual performances and moments in the game, whether it's the deciding factor of AD and his tactical kind of view of the game, whether it's Harry Watling having his say, whether it's Rob Edwards. Ultimately, I'm sure the three of them will have had all of their own ideas. But to be as brave and to pick that team, and as you say, considering we've been so good defensively, to go, well, no, I actually recognise that you need to score in football matches, and over the past few games we've not looked threatening enough. It's a really brave move, and ultimately the change of shape, the change of personnel, especially in the wide areas, again, we're seeing that same sort of Rob Edwards Midas touch again. Everything he touches seems to turn to gold. It was very brave, but absolutely worth it in the end. And I must say, going into the game now, despite sort of the opening 10 or 15 minutes being, I guess, as you would expect it, two teams near the top of the division with a lot of expectation on them, first game back after the international break, it was always going to be a case of feeling each other out, easing into the game, a little bit cagey, just winning your battles, winning your first headers, and just making sure you do nothing stupid to begin with. And that was very much the case. And then I think, to be honest, probably, as I say, 15 to 20 minutes in, it was as though something just clicked in the stadium and all hell broke loose. And the very best, from a neutral perspective, I mean, heart and mouth a little bit from both sets of fans in the stadium, but it was so entertaining. It was two, and I said this to you at half time, and I think what pleased me more, yes, we went into half time in the lead, but what pleased me more is we more than matched Ipswich. We, and they as well, I'll give them credit. Friday night, for as long as I can remember, I think honestly going back to, I don't know if you remember, during the Carrick season of that spell where we were arguably the best team in the division, when we played Burnley and it was a night game, and I just thought the quality of that game in the for the championship was excellent. And that is as close, if not better, to what I've seen since that game where I just thought this is two really, really good championship teams. And as I say, from a neutral perspective, it must have been an excellent game to watch because it was just end to end complete basketball match, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And to be fair, the they nearly hit the first blow, didn't they? With
Yeah.
Leif Davis down that left hand side. It is sort of harking back to Carrick. He's their Ryan Giles, isn't he, of that 22-23 season, constantly bombing on. His pace and his delivery are both top draw for this division. And he puts this one on a plate for Hurst, sort of cut back. Hurst looks like he's burying it in the bottom corner, and it takes a nick, bounces up off the turf, skips over the crossbar, and all their players around the referee. And from us, there's our position in the Riverside in the West Stand. There was quite a few bodies in the way of it, and I'm thinking, well, there must be something in it because they're all claiming for it. And upon seeing it back, obviously it does clip Alfie Jones's left hand and then skip off the turf and over the crossbar. But for me, I think that I would be shouting for it if it was.
I
It
think if
is,
it's yeah, if it's in the Premier League, I think it gets given, rightly or wrongly. I don't think he's made an attempt to kind of make
yeah,
his body bigger or stick his arm out, but it's quite clearly prevented the ball from going in the net, hasn't it?
yeah, definitely. As you say, if his arm's not there, it's in the corner, isn't it? But it's a benefit of the doubt moment for Borough. Then it's sort of our turn up the other end. Ipswich playing out from the back, which I spoke to an Ipswich fan before the game, and he said the times that you'll catch us today when we're trying to play out because we haven't got into our rhythm quite yet. Obviously, the last time they were in the division, they had Wolfenden, Burgess, Marcy, and Luongo in that four, the two centre halves and two midfielders. All of those players have now moved on, so they're trying to rebuild that with the new four, which you'd say are probably better quality players, but just haven't clicked yet. The player ball into Kajuse, Hackney just nips in front, does really, really well to sort of read that pass, nips in front, plays it into Strelec. Strelec, wonderfully weighted pass to Conway. You're sort of expecting him to score, really. Palmer dives, makes a really good save. Hackney then recycles it, chops inside, fires a shot through bodies. It takes a nick off an Ipswich defender's calf, through another one's legs, and Palmer pulls off a top save through bodies to tip it round the post. And you're thinking, that's a really, really good couple of chances for us there that we've made off our own back. Cross comes in. Brown wins the first contact, nods it back across, fires it to the edge of the box. Whitaker fires with shot in. Fry then flicks it on. It bounces off Tommy Conway, actually, who blocks it off the line for us. And then it comes back to Brown, who fires another great shot in off the turf. Palmer saves with his chest. I don't think he knows much about it. And the ball breaks, and you're thinking, for Christ's sake, will something just fall for us? They ping straight up the other end. Leif Davis puts a cross into the box. Schmodix sort of leaning back, tries to nod it back across the face of goal. Fry clears it off the line. And then again, Borough break, back up the other end. And Conway into Bergzorg. And do you want to know what? I don't think that the Sky cameras does this justice from Bergzorg, but I thought it was a great effort.
It was running
Off,
onto it first
off his,
time,
yeah,
yeah.
first time, curls it into that far corner.
Thierry
That's,
Henry-esque.
yeah, well, Palmer doesn't really deal with it all too well, does he? Makes the save, but parries it out. And Strelec powering in, just gets it all wrong, doesn't he? With his left foot and shanks it wide over, and that was sort of the end of a mad couple of minutes up until Ipswich then are attacking us once again. Davis. One thing that I noticed from them was the constant right to left diag
Yeah.
from O'Shea, really trying to pick out Davis. Davis crosses the ball in, Jones turns it away, but it just turns back into Davis's path, unfortunately. Britain's sort of flat-footed by that point. Davis charges into the box. And for me, I thought at the time, that's a pen. Britain's sort of dragged him back. And yeah, it upon reflection, he does sort it's not a massive pull, but you can see on one angle he sort of pulls his shirt a little bit. Davis does obviously make the most of it, but it don't begrudge him for that really. And he wins his side of penalty, albeit soft.
Yeah, I think in all honesty, it's probably still a penalty, but I think had you not have had the Alfie Jones handball incident before that, the referee maybe gives you the benefit of the doubt. I think the fact he lets the Jones one go makes his mind up in this. I still think it's a penalty, to be honest. It's a bit naive from Britain to pull his shirt as soon as you're putting hands on anyone when they're in front of you in the box. You're sort of fighting a losing battle already. And yeah, I don't think there's too many questions to be asked about that. I think there's a lot of questions to be asked about the fact why George Hurst has been allowed to take their penalty. The amount of quality that they have in their side. I know he's their striker. I'm not gonna lie, and this is based off nothing. I don't know if he's missed one already this season. I think he's definitely scored one, but I just never. It might have been just from social media reaction from Ipswich fans or things that I've seen online, but they don't seem that sold on him. And to be honest, from what I've seen of him, he, he runs the channels really well and he's a physical presence. But in terms of just actually goal scoring, I never really fancy him when he gets a chance. And I wasn't that confident when he stepped up. I felt like, and this is very rare, especially for a Middlesbrough goalkeeper, I actually felt like Bryn was going to save it. And do you know what? He went and done exactly that. And I must say, I might be over egging it a little bit. I don't know whether it's the change in the fact that obviously first half Ipswich was shooting towards the south stand, which would obviously have been different for however many years going back. And seeing that south stand so full, seeing Bryn, an academy product, so bright in the night sky in his yellow goalkeeper kit, I just felt like that moment is one of my favourite moments that I can remember in maybe even my full time supporting Middlesbrough. And it's not like, Ipswich aren't the Galacticos. It shouldn't be as, but there was just something about it that was just absolutely brilliant. It was the. I don't know if I'm sure you will have, but on the Sky cameras, if you watch the coverage back, when he actually makes the save, and what a save it is, the TV camera is literally shaking from the ground, just going absolutely mental. The fact that he turns round and celebrates it with so much passion, and the fact that actually everyone goes straight over to him, and I'm thinking, they're going to put this corner in the box. Yeah, they're not waiting round for Solbrin to finish celebrating. And it was just that kind of, I don't know, the passion, the kind of everything just felt up a height. I think the fact it had been so frantic, and then he goes and saves that, and you're like, "What is going on? This is unbelievable." This, I was trying to get my breath, to be honest.
Well, it's something that I think we're seeing that's been developed in the last, well, since Edwards has come in, really, but especially in the home games that you notice, which is there's a siege mentality starting to sort of take over the
There is.
Riverside, definitely. And you can see it in the first time that I really noticed it was the Sheffield United goal, where we'd got a really good crowd there for the Saturday 12:30 game. Conway goes through on goal, and it was the loudest I'd heard the Riverside in a while when he put that ball in the back of the net. The Sen goal against West Brom, absolutely fantastic. And then but Friday night, even when we were missing chances, I know we sit in the West Stand, which obviously isn't the most lively place in the ground, and which isn't probably the best place for me to be all over emotionally like I usually am. But we missed those couple of chances in the first half, and you could see players like Bergzorg and Conway sort of like these are the chances. Like we need to start taking these chances. And I'm thinking in my own mind, please don't let your heads drop. You're creating chances against this really good side, and you're going to get more. We are playing well. Don't let your heads drop. And then obviously the penalty up the other end, you're thinking it's just sod's law that we've had these chances, and then you're going to get a big sucker punch just before half time. And then for Big Salt stand up, make that save. I wasn't confident because I've watched enough football to know that there's just shitty narratives in the sport, unfortunately. And yeah, for Ipswich to then go up the other end and score the penalty would have been sod's law, as I say. But Big Sol stands up, makes a top save down to his right hand side, and you're sort of expecting, right, go into half time 0-0 and be buoyed by that penalty save. You've created chances, come again in the second half. But yeah, just before half time, it just falls nicely for us, doesn't it? A little bit with a nice little bit of play, to be fair. And I thought there's only 1 minute added time. There's been all this stuff that's gone on in the first half. And if you actually watch the Sky coverage, Bergsog's got the ball on the left-hand side with about 15 seconds to go. Anyway, we sort of circle it round, and Hackney drives forward, plays a pass to Bergsog, now on the right-hand side after he's shuffled over.
That was quite a common theme actually, and I thought something that Middlesbrough did really well, especially Bergsorg. He loves that diagonal run, probably just in between the two centre halves, drifting in from the left, and what we'll get onto in a little bit in terms of when we were trying to relieve a little bit of pressure. Even in the first half, there was a few times where Hackney, under a little bit of pressure, just goes, this isn't just a lump it up the pitch. It is a pass in behind. But when you've got willing runners, it especially for the ball to stick and keep it in a dangerous area of the pitch. But I think just having that, what we struggled with so much with the, I don't want to say the previous formation because it served us very well, but when you play with the two tens and then the number nine, and especially having Tommy Conway in the 10, it makes it incredibly difficult to get in behind anybody. Now, obviously, Ipswich playing a slightly higher line and being quite brave does help with that, but you still got to have the willing runners. And as I say, Bergsorg not just happy to stand out on the left, plays a massive part here, and even better to see him just basically flick Leif Davis into the River Tees. To be honest,
Yeah, he just rolls him, doesn't he? As if he's not really there. And yeah, to be fair, the delivery, you're hoping that people gamble across that front post. And to be fair, there is no one gambling, which is something that I would have a gripe about. But Cedric Kipre or is one of those centre halves in this division where you think they can either be really, really solid, or you can drop something like that. And for the first 45 minutes, he was relatively comfortable. Ball's being played in the channel, taking it down on his chest, circling it back around into midfield, and he just gets this one all wrong. I think he tries to hook it away with his left foot, misses it with his left foot, smashes in off his right foot into the back of the net. Then you're thinking, get that up, you Alex Palmer, saving all those shots, and that's the one that's beat you. So get that
yeah,
right up you, and we go into the break 1-0 up, and you're hoping that you can get into the second half, continue to limit Ipswich somewhat with the chances that they can create, because you know that a barrage is probably going to come at some point, which surprisingly it didn't really come
yeah, yeah,
in terms of clear cut chances that they created, and obviously try and get a second goal yourselves, which we did. And I don't think that you could have picked a more popular goal scorer in the Riverside, really, apart from Hayden Hackney, obviously, with that narrative. But as I said at the start of this podcast, when talking about Ipswich, I had a conversation with an Ipswich fan outside the ground in the fan zone before the game. And we talked about Borough changing formation and the two wide players coming into the Borough team. And I said, we've got a lad Whitaker who hasn't been too great for us, has really struggled with his confidence. You can see that he picks up good positions, but sometimes he's a bit lackadaisical on the ball, sort of wants too much time at times, and still hasn't scored for us yet. And he said, Well, you'll be glad to hear that when he was at Plymouth, he scored against us twice. One at Home Park and one at Portman Road. And I thought, well, he still hasn't scored for us, so it'd be great if he could break his Middlesbrough duck today. And lo and behold, football throws up some weird things, doesn't it? And Whittaker picks up a nice position off the right hand side here with acres of space around him. Drives inside, plays a ball wide to Strelec, who, although he missed his chance in the first half, he laid one on a plate for Conway.
Do you know
Made,
what? Yeah, what I was sorry, just to jump in. He laid obviously Conway off in the first half, but looking back at this goal, I didn't actually realise even in the stadium how good of a ball in on his weak foot it is
it's
because
on his toe.
yeah, because Palmer, if he doesn't get well, Conway is literally just waiting to tap the ball into the net, and it's not really a position that we've seen that much of Strelec in him drifting out to the right. But obviously, we're going to talk about Morgan Whittaker just slapping it into the back of the net. But I haven't seen many people mention it, and it is literally a perfect cross, which is like what you said earlier in terms of that 9.5 role. I think Rob Edwards said after the game he doesn't want defenders to know where he's playing, and that for me was probably yeah, undoubtedly his best performance in a Middlesbrough shirt. That is his role, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's where he's looked most comfortable. Still think he needs to get up to speed. Still think there's a lot more to come. But in terms of those little link ups between him and Whitaker, him and Conway especially, Conway's the nine, which it was wonderful to see because his pressing from the front, you're not getting better. Cali Sen's a very good alternative, but you're not getting better than Tommy Conway. He's just so effective at it. But yes, as I say, great ball in on his weak foot, and it lands to your man, as
Yeah.
you say. And I'm sure you're. I think it's your granddad's mate, isn't it, in the away end, who was probably just head in hands thinking, I should have never mentioned that.
Yeah, it's one of those just typical sport things, I suppose. And yeah, Whitaker puts that into the back of the net. And I think you can just see the reaction, really, that tells the whole story for him. He couldn't take the smile off his face. And to be fair, I, I'm so glad that he's got that goal because I was in that away end at Preston and I sort of turned to my brother after hearing the substitution reaction, just said, it's absolutely disgusting the way that some fans reacted that day. I get it, his performances haven't been great, but you don't treat your players like that. Especially those that are trying a leg. He is trying, and he's just had a really tough time. And as much as his performances have been frustrating, fingers crossed that goal is the weight off his shoulders that we hope it is, and that we see a, a Morgan Whitaker playing sort of with the
But
shackles off, I suppose.
yeah, to be honest, I think even he didn't last that much longer after his goal. But even the few times that he did get on the ball after his goal, I think he saw the confidence. I think he knocked it round one of the full backs. And, he's not a kind of chalk on the boots, knock it down the line and cross it in type of winger. He picks up really good pockets. We were talking about it at half time, saying Bergsorg's been really effective running in behind and giving you basically something to hold on to when you actually get the ball forward. I thought Bergsorg played really well in terms of just he is a little bit guilty, or at least from what we saw of him last season, where if he gets the ball, it is just head down and run. And he's got plenty of skill and technical ability. He'll beat players and he'll skip past players and make them look daft at times. There's other times, though, where he's just running down a blind alley and you're thinking, please just look up. That aspect of his game I thought was much, much better on Friday night. Picked out passes, as you say, even shots and things like that. There was a time last season where marking Delano Bergsorg was show him on his right and he'll just shoot and then you'll block it and that'll be that. On Friday night, he looked a genuine threat, but in terms of Whitaker, we said how many times did he pick up really good positions and either his final pass was not quite it or he just wanted a little bit too long. And yeah, he gets his reward. But as I say, it was so well for me anyway, and I'm sure a lot of other people, it just looked like there was. and he said it in his interview with BBC Tees after, a complete weight off his shoulders. It was, and he did actually have an effort. I want to say just before that, which he had on his right foot. It might have actually been after when
He
he just,
shanked it off the bar,
yeah, he
yeah.
just chops onto his right foot and puts it over the bar again. He's always in a good position to receive the ball, Morgan Whittaker, and I think that's why it's so frustrating because we've seen his quality at Plymouth where he's smashing balls left, right, top corner, bottom corner, as you say, on that left foot, and you're thinking, well, he's in the positions. If he can just find that one goal or that one moment, then hopefully we see this on a more regular basis, and he gets that goal, and obviously Tommy Conway, he's. I think you saw it in the comments, and we've got to talk about the comments because Matt Target seems to think that London Houston Station is actually on the moon. Not, not as the saying goes, Matt, but a good attempt nonetheless. I hope it's an inside joke in the fact that he hasn't actually thought that that was, yeah, the actual saying. But regardless, from Tommy Conway's celebration, and he commented on Whitaker's post, the most he celebrated a goal, a Borough goal, other than his own ever. And you saw it. There's an amazing picture of Tommy Conway sliding, and he's like, he hasn't even gone for a knee slide. He's just basically chucked his body along the grass and just let the sort of surface carry him along while still like clinging on to Morgan Whittaker as well. And yeah, you could see how much it all meant to all of them. And I think going back to even the Bryn penalty save, I think what we're seeing a lot of this season is although we're winning games as a unit and they're all together, what's really good, and I think what will just breed confidence amongst the individuals, but also as a group, you're seeing players have their moment. And by that, I mean, you've seen Strelec score on his debut. That was his moment. You've seen Cali Sen come off the bench against West Brom and score, and that's his big moment. Sol Bryn, I think it's gone under the radar how well he's actually done. And I think the defence has played a big part, but that moment for him to almost announce himself as, yeah, I'm Middlesbrough's number one now, and there's no question now at all. And I don't think there was, but he's had that moment to say, yeah, I've properly announced myself now. And Morgan Whittaker again getting his first goal. It just all plays into and feeds into that confidence as a unit, as a team, as you say, even in the stands, that there's just a confidence growing amongst the supporters, amongst the squad, that they probably look round, we probably look round. And yes, there's always preferences in terms of players and stars that stick out week in, week out. But I think players will be looking around the dressing room and going, yeah, this is a really good squad. This you can almost imagine in a few years down the line, listening to Under the Cosh and one of the Middlesbrough players of this generation going, "Yeah, we had a really good squad that season." But I think, in all seriousness, Rob Edwards, and as I said too, I touched on it earlier. There's not many players at all, and I think usually you look around the squad and you go, "He's last resort." But this squad, you go, yeah, you look at the team and a few question marks were raised, but you go, yeah, he's going to offer something. And Delano Bergsorg and Morgan Whittaker were the two standouts. They had their big moments, as did Sol. And Dom Shaw, for me, friend of the podcast, summed it up perfectly in the first half. If Alan Brown's your third choice centre midfielder, then you're doing something right. Because barring a few sloppy passes in the first 10 minutes. I know Hackney got man of the match on Sky and he was everywhere in the first half. I thought Alan Brown was as good, if not better.
He was really good. He was really, really good. As you say, as a third choice midfielder, he's absolutely sublime, really. You'd take him in your starting 11 for most championship clubs. And he was a very underrated signing, I think, by some that don't sort of know all about the championship, but knowing that he's been at Preston for years and was their best player for years, going to
Yeah.
Sunderland, and he struggled with an injury last year as well. I think he'd broken his foot or his leg and was out for quite a long period of time. But can play central midfield, can play right back, can play a variety of different positions, and you're always going to get the same thing, which is a 7, 8 out of 10 from Alan Brown. And the other night, as you say, first 10 minutes, I thought he struggled a little bit, played a couple of passes astray. But apart from that 10 minutes, he was absolutely sublime, fantastic. And just to sort of step on a little bit, we obviously concede the goal from the corner with 15 minutes to go, and you think, oh, this is going to be a nervy last 15 minutes. They score the goal from the corner, swung in by Marcelino Nunes. O'Shea just escapes Alfie Jones, nods in at the near post, and you think, yeah, this is going to be a long last 15 minutes. Watching the clock, immediately turned down to Rob Edwards, and he's got his hands up, raising the crowd. Come on now, we need you. And as I say, it's the siege mentality. And there was only one moment really from then on that I was completely worried about, which they sort of picked up the intensity really fast down the left hand side, played a couple of passes, and Davis played one up the line into Clark, who was driving into the box, tried to play a ball across the face of goal, and Ivan Azon is literally on the 6 yard box, free as a bird. Sol dives in and just gets it palm on it, and then just gets it back in his grasp. That was the real big opportunity for them. I think that if Sol doesn't get that, it's two
It's a
two.
goal. It's a
It's a
goal, isn't
goal.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely. And we're back level. But just tell you what was really interesting that I found, which was 4 minutes added on at the end of the game, and with probably a minute to go, Ipswich had the ball down the right hand side, and they and ahed about a long throw in, then opted to go for a long throw in. Furlong's lined it up. He's on the advertising board, lined it up until he walks forward and then plays it short to Nunes. Them two played a couple of passes between each other for what felt like 30 seconds, 40 seconds that they'd wasted time. The last action of the game, after a minute of them two messing about, was Nunes putting a ball in the box, which was nowhere near the 6 yard box, was a crap ball in the box, and it was neatly headed away by Britain, chased down by Sen, and that was game over. And what it reminded me of was the back end of last season when we were going for the playoffs, and we just had absolutely no idea about the state of the game and about the need to show some intent to try and get a goal, to try and get in the playoffs, and just played at the same intensity. It was very Carrick, and
Yeah.
how apt that it's his best mate in charge of them. So get it firmly up you and enjoy your trip back to Suffolk.
For whatever reason, and this goes back to when they actually initially got promoted, as I'm sure you can read into from Nathan's choice words there, Nathan's developed this kind of animosity towards Ipswich. I think it's just from the money that they've spent, or maybe it's because they've signed Tuba or dared to try and sign Hayden Hackney. But yeah, he really doesn't like them. But yeah, it was quite funny. The sort of needless one-twos where you're just thinking, for Christ's sake, just cross it into the box. We've created nothing, or well, I mean they did create something, but going back to last season, we've created nothing. Just pump it in the box and hope for the best. And we've seen from graphs, stats over the international break, really, Middlesbrough have become one of the best teams in the division at defending their own box. And whether that's a 4 or a 5, I actually, funnily enough, felt that we should have went back to the 5 earlier. And I think when he brought, I understand completely why he did it, because he moved Morris into central midfield and there was the three of Hackney, Brown and Morris. And then he went with Conway off the right, who just looked knackered and wasn't really they were starting to get a lot of joy down that left, as you're gonna when you've got 20 million pound Jack Clark and Leif Davis running in behind him. But he put Silvera on to try and combat that, and I think it probably didn't quite have the desired impact. He puts Luke Ayling on, and that left hand side almost just becomes nullified in their attack because, as you say, at that moment they're then just trying to go 1-2s, long throws down the right. Furlong hasn't got his towel, And yeah, they were just pretty ineffective from that moment onwards. But look, we saw the game out. And as you say, that siege mentality. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I find it a little bit cringe when certain clubs do it. And I think there is a difference. The siege mentality, the cheering a tackle like a goal, the winning a throw in, and kind of appreciating the importance of that's gonna kill 10 seconds, especially when Luke Aylin's got anything to do with it. And I always think in the first half at Newcastle, when it's 0-0, it's not even a big game, and Dan Burn tries to take a first touch and kicks it out of play, and somehow it gets a cheer from the Newcastle fans, and you're thinking, like, lads, honestly, what are you doing? Seriously, he's tried to clear one up the line, won a throw in because he's hooked it off the fullback by accident, and yous are all celebrating as though you've scored a 95th minute winner. And I'm thinking, oh my God, if we ever become that, I'd be like almost embarrassed. It's a little bit Arsenal, isn't it? And they're massively cringe. But in them last few minutes, when Sen just sends, I think it's Marcelino Nunes or it's actually Jack Clark, funnily enough. Sen chases the ball down and the referee's got his whistle in his mouth and he was about to blow. And Sen just goes, see you later, Jack Clark, steel arm. Nearly ends up in your seat in the West Stand. And the whistle goes. I'm thinking, yeah, be as cringe as you want because I'm celebrating tackles, I'm celebrating blocks, I'm celebrating throw-ins. But that's what Rob Edwards has instilled in all of us, I think. And there is that really, as you say, siege mentality, us against the world. And let's not kind of downplay that. Let's embrace it because there was a disconnect at the end of last season and people had really just got fed up with style over substance, and it feels like a little bit of a. I like Ange Postecoglou, but it's the same book of tricks as Russell Martin, Ange Postecoglou, Ruben Amorim, Michael Carrick to an extent of we're going to do what I think first, and even if we're not winning or getting points out of this, we're still going to do it because I'm really trendy, and if we score a goal, it'll be 15 passes, and everyone will wax lyrical about how much of a wonderful attacking, beautiful football that we play. It's honestly, I promise. Look, I'm not Rob Edwards, and there's a lot more than just goes into it. But I promise you, defending your own box and being slightly effective at the top of the pitch, having some good players, football is not as kind of difficult as what it's made out to be, and that's been proven by Rob Edwards. I think the Michael Owen quote goes that Rob Edwards has even used. It's easier to smash down a house with a big boulder than it is to then rebuild it. And we have metaphorically got that part, smashing the house down with a boulder and destroying it to a T so far. We know how to destroy attacks. We know how to destroy momentum. We are doing the things that people seem to underappreciate, and certainly Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough team did it. And there will be bumps in the road. There has been Portsmouth. We created nothing and we were awful. But then Rob Edwards has gone into the next game and gone, I'm going to be bold. I've noticed that. And I'm not going to worry about Ipswich. And to be honest, when the team come out, I was thinking, one of the best attacks in the division. Does he go, okay, I'm happy to concede a little bit of territory here and we'll use our top level box defenders, Dale Fry, Magnet Head, Lighthouse, whatever you want to call him, Alfie Jones, and Luke Ayling. I felt really, really sorry for him actually, but he still come on and made a massive impact. But we showed not only a great defensive nous and just intent, as you put it really nicely, to go and win the ball, but also I think that game on Friday showed more than we have done all season, perhaps, that we've got some really talented attackers. And when I spoke to Dom last week, we were speaking about expected goals for and against. Middlesbrough's numbers in terms of expected goals against, right at the very top of the division. Until this weekend, I know it'll reset or whatever come Monday, we were right at the very bottom of the league. If we can maintain them numbers and even get to the middle of the pack in terms of attacking, we'll be right there or thereabouts. And as I say, Friday night I watched that game and obviously delighted with the results. But I think the most pleasing thing for me was we've hit the 10 game mark, so I was allowed to look at the league table. But also, and I said it to you at half time, we looked a really good side and it looked sustainable and it was against arguably one of the best teams in the division. And
Yeah,
you can't at this stage of the season, I don't think as Middlesbrough fans we can really ask for much more than that.
yeah, definitely not. And it's a really good win against a side that you're going to expect to come good at some stage this season. On the XG point, the question marks before this game after the last block was on about us creating chances and more clear cut ones from open play. Created 1.86 XG on Friday night, and that's not accounting for the zero XG chance that Cedric Kipre buries in his own net. So that's really nice. Created some good chances there. And then just final shout out. Obviously, we've waxed lyrical about Sol's save. Players diving, bodies on the line. Dale Fry does three in a row in the second half. Alfie Jones, I thought, had a top game, just sort of jostling with Hurst for long periods of that game. Fullbacks, both top draw, as they usually are. Midfielders, outstanding. Hackney proves that you can sign Matasiwa for 8 million quid and Kajuste, who played in the Premier League last year and is on loan from Napoli and is, oh, well, yeah, we didn't want Hackney anyway. We've got Kajuste hooked at 60 odd minutes. Shite.
He had them both on dog leads, didn't he?
Matasiwa just looks like a little fat lad in midfield. Looks terrible. Honestly, I'm being dead serious as well. He looks awful. And yeah, Hackney, best midfielder on the pitch. And the main shout out as well as the players in and around him, but Bergzorg comes into the team against a lot of against the backdrop of the announcement of the team before the game. Everyone, why is he starting? What's the point? Forfeit the game, this and that. And he was absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. And the one part that really stood out to me in that second half, Hackney hooked a ball up the channel. Bergzorg has no right to get there. Little fat lad running, trying to get the ball. And Bergzorg just goes, here, get off, smashes him out of the way, brings the ball down, plays it back to Hackney, spins fat lad, runs off with the ball and gets us an attack. Yeah, it was a really, really good result, but means nothing if we don't go to Sheffield Wednesday on Wednesday night and win that game. And we'll get on to them now, Chris, because 3 game week, we've got off to a fly first game, 3 points at home, travel away on Wednesday
Can I
night.
just quickly just interject with a cliche because I always like a cliche on this podcast. Statement win that, wasn't it?
Not saying anything because it doesn't matter if we don't win this game, and I mean it dead seriously as well.
That's a good podcast host right there.
We have to win, on Wednesday at Wednesday. I mean, where do you start with Sheffield Wednesday? It's an absolutely tragic going on down there at the minute with the owner, Mr. Chansiri, and the fans, and trying to get him out of the football club. I mean, the players haven't been paid on time 5 months out the last 7, which is just terrible, really. Fingers crossed that like the actual staff members behind the scenes are the ones being paid on time because they probably need it more, really. But they're a side that is literally on a shoestring. They've got plenty of academy players in there, the odd senior pro littered throughout the team.
Barry Bannon will still be one of the best players on the pitch, no doubt.
He will be, yeah. He's top draw, Barry Bannon, and fair play to him for sticking around there for as long as he has, and especially this summer after he was out of contract and stayed on. But yeah, we're expecting a protest on Wednesday evening. I think that it'll be a empty ground pretty much,
Yeah,
which
I think there is. Funnily enough, I was having this conversation with my dad on the way back from the game on Friday, actually. And obviously, Borough have again sold out their allocation. There's going to be plenty of Middlesbrough fans there. And what I would say is, obviously, I'm not telling anyone what to do, but I think Sheffield Wednesday fans would really appreciate it if you don't go and buy a pint in the ground or buy a hot chocolate. Just buy one from I don't know, some stand outside of the ground or a local pub. I don't think there's anything wrong at all with going and watching your team, were the away side. Any other club would do it, and any other club have done it. And it's interesting because for me and you, for example, we have season tickets. If we put the shoe on the other foot, and I'm sure Sheffield Wednesday fans might view it differently, but if you've already paid your lump sum in one go, and it's your club, it's your love, yes, you might say, well, I'm not going. I'm sure there's plenty of them that have said, I'm not spending a penny and haven't done. But if you've paid your money up front, it's not hurting Chansiri if you go because he's already got your money, hasn't he?
Yeah,
So I'm sure there'll still be probably a core of, I don't know, 7,000 perhaps. But it's going to be an odd atmosphere anyway. And what you've put at the bottom of the notes here is perfect, and I'm sure it'll be the exact message that Rob Edwards is relaying. This is a game to be taken seriously because how many times over the last few years you think back to Charlton, you think of that game at Reading a few years ago where they were lobbing things on the pitch. Middlesbrough do have a little bit of a habit where in moments of adversity we we basically thrust forward our inner typical Borough and in a stadium against a team that most teams will beat this season will throw up a performance where you go, how have I just watched that on Friday night and they've produced that? Now, I don't think it's fair to label Rob Edwards' team like that yet because they might go and breeze past Sheffield Wednesday. But as you say, Sheffield Wednesday have got everything going against them and it almost just takes any pressure off them at all. So they're just going to go out and play their game. Barry Bannon will be trying to lob whoever he wants, pinging balls all over the place. There's no pressure on them at all. They're expected to lose. Whereas, as you say, we've gone out and put a really amazing best performance of the season in. You've got to follow it up. You simply, there is no excuses. You have to follow this up.
yeah, definitely. And obviously, they got beat yesterday at Charlton 2-1 in the game, which is a close game by the looks of the scoreline. 2-0 down, came back to 2-1. And then late on in the game, Ethan Horvath, the goalkeeper, gets himself sent off, comes out, clatters into Alafe, and will obviously miss the game against us on Wednesday evening. Both of their senior goalkeepers are out. They've got one player who was on the bench yesterday who is a goalkeeper, young lad, 18 years old, called Logan Stretch. Didn't even come on when they had the sending off, by the way. They put Liam Palmer in goal for the last 30 seconds of the game,
He's
which,
played just about anywhere else, hasn't he?
yeah, Logan Stretch. What I can tell you about him is he's never played a minute for Sheffield Wednesday. And from what you can see, he's played 90 minutes of youth football.
So yeah, he's going to have the game of his life, is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. So, as I say, you have to go there and pick up a win, like nothing less than that. And then Saturday. And if you told me that this was going to be a championship fixture in 2019, I think it was, when I was at Hartlepool putting money in coffers at Hartlepool to keep the club afloat, and they were playing Wrexham that day, and you then told me that in 2025 you'd be playing Wrexham in a league fixture, I'd be like, well, what's happened to Borough? How have we gone down to League Two? Obviously, the story is
Let's
a
right.
Hollywood
The
story.
the story is this, Nathan. They've got two very wealthy owners and probably some unknown that pumps a load of money in behind and has basically financed their way up the football pyramid. Now, admittedly, people have pumped loads of money in over the years. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can do it, every club dreams of going on that whole journey. But let's have it right. They've spent each season effectively enough to buy a whole new squad, which is again what they've done this season. And in fairness to Phil Parkinson, he's he's taken them all the way. And this season, I think a lot of people, if we take the game for what it is and the squad that it is, and not the Hollywood narrative that they try and paint that they're like some kind of big underdog, I think a lot of people thought they'd be doing better by this stage. I think that would be
Well,
fair to say, given the money that they've spent anyway.
well, it's a little bit difficult, isn't it? You've come up all those divisions, and yeah, people will point to the money and things like that. And to be fair, I'm usually quite like that as well. I mean, look at the state of me with my view on Ipswich.
Yeah,
But Wrexham to do what they've done and go National League, League Two, League One. This summer's obviously the big one where they've spent really heavily and bought lots of championship season pros, really. Kiefer Moore, Josh Windass, Broadhead's their record fee. Sheaf, Lewis O'Brien, obviously ex-Borough. Callum Doyle, which is one that I knew that you probably would like to see at Borough, maybe.
yeah. Well, I think
This summer.
most Championship clubs would have, to be fair, and they spent a
Yeah,
big old chunk on him as well. And I think what perhaps is maybe under the radar as well. They aren't only big fees that they're paying in terms of the transfer fee that you say. I'm sure Connor Cody's being absolutely weighed in as well.
yeah, he definitely will be, won't he? He'll be on an absolute wedge there. But yeah, they've sort of come up and struggled a little bit, really, with the sort of change to Championship football. Despite having a team full of Championship pros, it's difficult to make that team gel. But they're currently 18th in the division. They lost yesterday at Stoke 1-0 narrowly, and the previous results before that, they drew the previous three against Derby, Leicester, and Birmingham. What stands out about both the teams we're going to play this week? Sheffield Wednesday have conceded the second highest expected goals so far this season and have conceded a good few as well, obviously shipping a five to Coventry, and they've had the fair share of threes as well. And Wrexham, despite the money spent, and look, they've narrowed it down to ones the last couple of weeks in terms of scoreline, but their expected goals, they've conceded the fourth highest. So these teams aren't the best defensively, is what I'm telling you. If we can continue in the same vein that we did on Friday evening in terms of chance creation and being able to sort of it might be a little bit more difficult in terms of we were playing a lot on the counter attack and on the break on Friday. These teams, I'd be surprised if that's the case. But if we can create anywhere near the same amount of chances as we did, I think we'll be okay in these games this week. But what a real opportunity to go and attack the week. I don't want to be that guy, but the opening 10 fixtures have been quite harsh on
Yeah.
Borough and the teams that we've had to play, especially away from home. To now have an opportunity to go to Sheffield Wednesday and just win by hook or by crook, win that game. I don't care if it's 5-0, I don't care if it's 1-0 and the goal comes off Strelek's arse. I couldn't care less. Just get 3 points at Sheffield Wednesday and take that into Wrexham and see what they're about on Saturday afternoon. Really looking forward to the week, and it's a real opportunity to go and attack it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think, to be honest, most Middlesbrough fans, although everyone knows by now that we're capable of matching these really good championship teams, I think most would have said, well, we've got two more winnable fixtures coming up Wednesday and Saturday. I'll take a point tonight. We've won that game, and now you can look ahead, as you say, and really go and attack the week. So, yeah, it will be really interesting. The fixture list is a little bit kinder, at least for this week. Still plenty of travelling, as always, in the Championship, and obviously a hectic schedule. But we'll be hoping to carry on that momentum, both on the pitch and off the pitch, on the podcast. Of course, we will be back next week to discuss Middlesbrough and their 2 games. So yes, Nathan, thank you very much for your time this morning, not this evening. And I hope you now can go and put your feet up and watch Super Sunday. And look forward to hopefully 2 wins, as I say. So yes, thanks everyone for watching and listening. Please do like and subscribe as always. And of course, you can also rate and review. And again, that has been another episode of the Boropolis podcast. And thank you very much for watching.